Welcome to the Indie Women Podcast, where we introduce you to the fearless women taking their filmmaking careers into their own hands, showing you how indie films get made. And here's your host, Heather Turman.
Hello, and welcome to the Indie Women Podcast. I am your host, Heather Turman. And this week you guys are in for a real treat. I had the pleasure of chatting with Robyn Paris, an accomplished writer and comedy director. She initially hopped onto the Hollywood scene as an actor in the cult classic phenomenon The Room, which of course inspired The Disaster Artist and a whole new generation of fans. But Robyn is an incredible writer-director. She's a future director of Studio Features Fellow through the Blackmagic Collective. She holds an MFA in Screenwriting from UCLA, and she really knows her stuff. And we had an excellent discussion about, overcoming the stigma brought on by The Room and, transforming her own career and really taking control of it. She also gave a lot of insight about the old school pathways into Hollywood and sort of the new school thought of how to do it yourself, And I think she just has a ton of great things to say, and she's so inspiring. So I know you will enjoy this episode because I certainly enjoyed the conversation. So without further ado, here's Robyn Paris.
Hello.
Okay, great. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm so happy you could be here. Welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being on it.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's strange because I feel like I accidentally fell into your circle, but we happen to have a lot of the same we've worked with a lot of the same people, strangely enough, like Chris Clancy, Marco, Ashla, you know what I mean? So
yeah. You had worked with them before too. I didn't know you had worked with Marco and Ashla in the past.
Well, I hadn't prior to that. I didn't actually. I've known Chris Clancy for years, and Chris passed Marco along to me for a different project. I was producing a short for a friend, and when I hired him, they were like, "You were on The Room Actors," and they were like, "He's like, I was the DP for it," and I was like, "Oh shit," So it was just one of those crazy things.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Chris, I feel like I met him when I first got to LA.
Really?
Years ago. I feel like it's been a long time.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, he seems to know everybody. I feel like he knows everybody.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah. So, I'm honored to have been gotten to be a hilarious role on your series, The Room Actors. Where are they now?
You were so funny. I love Pauline.
So fun. It was like the best day of my life, honestly.
We basically yelled at each other. That was the only thing we got to do. We didn't even get to sit and have a conversation.
I know, but it was still fun. Like, because it was all in good fun. Like, we knew that it was totally ridiculous and over the top. I mean, I love that storyline so much. For people listening, we'll get all into The Room Actors, but it's a hilarious web series, and I was so fortunate to, when I was getting hair and makeup done, they were like, "Oh my gosh, everyone wanted to play this role. This is like one of the funniest ones in the whole series." And I was so honored. I was like, this is like just a blast, like the type of thing you want to go do with your day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, your red patent leather coat you showed up with was so perfect for that role.
It was so funny.
I was like, what? I felt like I couldn't even compete. I'm like, I need my green patent leather jacket. I was in like a boring purple dress.
Oh, it was great though. Like, it was great. And you were so funny in that, when you get hit and you have the cast thing on your face, it's priceless.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, we're rival, just for people listening, we're rival lip syncers in the scene.
Yes, so. Rival lip syncers. And I out Robyn as a former cast member of The Room, which is great.
She wins.
But so before we get into, we'll touch on that series in particular, but so you're from North Carolina?
Yes.
So tell me, like, when you came out to LA, what was the story? Give me it. How'd you get into this business?
Yeah. I mean, I came to LA in 2001. So it was a really long time ago. And I had lived in Chicago, been on some improv teams, done a lot of improv. So I'd done a lot of comedy, but weirdly enough, the first, role that I got when I got to LA was being in The Room, which is supposed to be a drama, but it's actually a broad comedy. I mean, it actually is kind of funny the way it worked out because so many comedians love The Room.
Yes.
And I consider myself a comedian, like I do mostly comedy. So I was like, well, it actually worked out perfectly for me in the end. But it was basically the first thing I auditioned for when I got to LA. I just like mailed out a ton of headshots, responded to everything in Backstage West, and they called me. I mean, The Room, it was actually Greg Sestero who was doing all the calling as well. He was like wearing every possible hat. He was like the producer, the star, casting director.
Indie film, yeah.
So I came to set and they just, I read with a bunch of people. Actually, I was the first one there to audition for The Room. If you want me to I can get into like, that was pretty much how I started in Hollywood. Like I came straight out. I feel like I went straight to The Room audition.
Wow. Yeah, totally.
It was just really weird. And then no one ever heard of The Room for years. Like it was great. It was buried like deep in my past and no one knew about it. And then I went on and like went to film school and did all this. I went to UCLA film school and studied screenwriting and did improv and did a bunch of other things. And no one knew about The Room. And then it kind of came back to haunt me many years later.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I mean, I lived in DC first, Chicago, then LA, and was a management consultant in DC at first. And just felt like my life force was being totally sucked out like with the vacuum, and I just had to get out. So I started doing improv, and that kind of was like a rebirth for me. And that's what led me to LA. I mean, I always wanted to be an actor, but my parents were not supportive of that.
Sure. Every artist's, experience, like the people who have supportive parents, they don't have anything to prove. So they don't really, they can't handle it. That's a cutthroat experience. Yeah, because it's so funny. You said it came back to haunt you a few years later, because I got here in 2005. I came right out of high school, fresh out of the Midwest, didn't know anything. And when I got here, The Room billboard was on the corner of Sunset there, and so and I didn't know about it. I just was like, oh, weird, like there's this. I saw it, I heard about it, and then years later, same thing is when it had gained this sort of underground cult following and became The Room. And then I loved The Disaster Artist, but still to this day, I have not seen The Room. I'm ashamed to say I have not seen it. I know. All of my friends are like, you have to see it.
Yeah. I just said, how could you?
I know, I'm so sorry.
It's actually for the best. It's a waste. I mean, it's a waste of a couple hours. Although if you go and see it screened live, it's actually a really cool experience.
That's what I've heard. And so I'm sort of like waiting for, because I've got friends who are like really into it, and they're like, it's one of those things that like when you go to a live showing, everybody will like yell out the lines and just make it a fun sort of experience. And I love when things are an experience like that. So I will see it, and it will totally be in that type of environment one day.
Yes.
But so you, because it's really, I love that your roots are in comedy. I think it shows in your work. You're an incredibly funny writer and definitely a performer. You did it like so well in your web series, which,
thank you.
Of course, yeah, my pleasure. Which is the Room actors. Where are they now? So and you sort of, it seemed like you timed this like right after Disaster Artist. Like, was that strange? Like, were you like, okay, I need to take this pile of fucking straw, this pile of shit, and turn it into something? Or was it like tell me about it. When did you come up with the idea and go with it?
So, it was weird because I came up with the idea before James Franco and Seth Rogen optioned the book, Disaster Artist, but Greg was in the process of writing his book, The Disaster Artist, and we were all being interviewed for it. So I was like, oh my God, like this is actually, it has a big book. He has a book deal with Simon and Schuster, and people are going to read this and know about it. And what I had seen in the press when people wrote about The Room was basically like the actors totally suck. Like everything was like, this movie sucks, like it's unintentionally funny, which it is. But the actors, we were always as a group like dragged through the mud along with Tommy. And to me, this was always Tommy's vision, Tommy's baby, Tommy's thing.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, the director is the center of the octopus, they're supposed to rein it all in. Yeah.
Exactly. So I mean, I guess by then I had gone to film school at UCLA, and I was like, oh my God, like no matter what I do for the rest of my life, I'll always just be known as being this shitty ass actor in the room. So I'm like, what do I do? I've got to do something to regain some sort of dignity or something. And I was a comedy writer, and I thought, well, why don't I just be in on the joke? Like make us all in on the joke and have fun with it. So my original idea was to do a spoof of Citizen Kane, because the room is called the Citizen Kane of Bad Movies. So I thought I'm going to make a project that essentially spoofs Citizen Kane, but with the room actors.
All in a room.
Yeah, we're going to recreate scenes from Citizen Kane. And I had this whole plan, and it was just like so meta, but then it was just too hard to pull off. Like there was no way. But if you see the room actors, the very first episode, Juliette Danielle is in that bar hunched over a drink in a red dress, which is very similar to Susan Alexander in Citizen Kane. And there's even a couple lines from Citizen Kane that are in the first episode that I have her say that I don't know if anybody noticed that at all. Probably
I've only seen I haven't seen the whole Citizen Kane. It's one of the obviously one of the greatest movies of all time. It's on my list. So I've only seen fragments. So I didn't pick up on it, but now I know. So now I'm going to watch and I'll look out. I haven't seen all the episodes of the room actors though.
I was trying to be so meticulous, but I don't think anybody picked up on it. I don't think anybody, but anyway, that was
buffs do.
You what?
I bet maybe buffs do. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So then I just kind of said, okay, well, I'm just going to create a web series, and I'm going to just put all the room actors in it, and it's going to be a fictionalized version of ourselves, exaggerated, spoofed. And so then I wrote it, and then I just sat on it. Like we went and did an interview for the Disaster Artist for the launch. And that's when I saw a bunch of the room actors for the first time after many, many years. And I told them about my idea, and I was like really nervous that they would be like, that sucks. Like, what? Why would we do that? So I was kind of like very tentative talking to them about it. And Juliette Danielle jumped on board immediately. She was like, oh my God, yeah, let's do it. So then I told everyone else, and Greg Sestero was there too. I asked him. He was like, well, okay, maybe, you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, meanwhile, I just like, he and Tommy are like this. Like you can't ask him to do something that separates from Tommy. So so then I again just sat on it. This was like 2012, 2013. And then Juliette Danielle emailed me. It's like, whatever happened? Why is this not happening? And I'm like, really? You want to see it? Meanwhile, I've been working on it. So I sent it over, and she loved it. And so then I finally had the confidence to send it to everybody. I mean, I've been a writer, but I hadn't made anything yet. And so I just was like, how do I even do this? Are people going to like it? And I was worried about putting myself out there because the room had such a fan base. And I thought, what if this totally sucks? And I lived in that space of like, what if this totally sucks for like a long time? But that motivated me to make sure it didn't suck. You know?
Yeah, I mean? Absolutely. Absolutely.
So working on it, trying to make it good. And then we raised money in 2014 on Kickstarter for the first 3 episodes. And around that time is when James Franco and Seth Rogen optioned The Disaster Artist. So it was like kismet. I mean, it worked out perfectly.
Beautiful.
I had already written it. I had just raised the money, and then I found out that they were doing this, and I'm like, this is perfect. Like it'll come out at the same time.
Yeah.
And actually, my show was ready way before The Disaster Artist came out, but I contacted Funny or Die, and they were going to launch it for me. And so they asked me to sit on it essentially. So I sat on it for a year before I put it out. It was on the festival circuit in 2016 and 2017 and didn't come out online until 2018.
Yeah. And then you did like like different episodes at different times.
Yes.
So, cause you nailed it. The tone is perfect. I mean, it's exactly like like grade A mockumentary style filmmaking. It's so good. Yeah. And I just love that you did get to turn something on its head, you know, like I think when we own, you know, my roots are in stand-up comedy. So whenever any tragedy happens, all you do is turn it into comedy. It's the only way, you know what I mean? It's really the only way. Yes. And so I really admire that. So what was it like tapping into when you did crowdfund? Did you find that the room audience and that sort of fan base jumped on board quickly? Was it an easy process? Was it a hard process?
They did. I mean, it hadn't, I don't know, the press jumped on it, luckily. Like I was very type A about the way I ran it just because of that fear of failure. I just didn't want it to suck, like I said.
Yeah,
So
like you can't be like, oh my gosh, I'm setting out. I was in the worst movie ever, and then when I tried to make fun of it, I made the worst web series.
Yes. I mean, I was just setting myself up for like a lot of people to make fun of me if I did a bad job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, because they already were saying how shitty we were, that it was like, yeah, now Robyn just proved how bad they actually are. They're even worse than I thought. So the press jumped on it. I created a spreadsheet of 80 different press outlets that had covered things about the room in the past or written articles. And I blasted all 80 of those press outlets when I launched my campaign. And weirdly enough, the Entertainment Weekly picked it up first through a Facebook post, because I was friends with this journalist who had done a story on the room before. He picked it up immediately. And then when he ran an article, like a couple hours after my campaign launched, a bunch of other press picked it up as well. And then it just got a ton of press, which really helped the Kickstarter, because all that press directed people right back to the Kickstarter. But I will say some of that press, I mean, my friend at Entertainment Weekly, Clark Collis, is awesome, super nice. But some of the press was like basically saying, this is going to suck.
Yeah.
Like, pull up a chair, get popcorn, just wait till this sucks. So, so, and I had to develop a thick skin. I hadn't been out there. I mean, other than being in the room, I hadn't really been in the public eye. And from being on stage as a stand-up comic, I mean, I've never done that. I've done improv, but it's completely different because you're playing a character. But that, it requires thick skin. You don't
Absolutely. I mean, people say, crazy shit to you, when you put yourself out there. It's really wild. It's like, we're being very vulnerable. We're entering the, arena here, and people love to fucking throw jabs. They love to bring people down, crabs in a barrel. And so I can only imagine, and I just find it so inspiring. I think it's so great. I love seeing all that you're doing, and that you didn't let something like that pull you away from the industry forever. Like, you didn't run away and hide, but rather just owned it and get to say, like, what a crazy experience, and moving on. I'm more than just Chocolate Girl.
Exactly. Well, I knew that the room actors had more to offer. Like, I just wanted to change that narrative. I knew that there was no reason. My phone seems to have died. I'm sorry, my audio.
Oh, that's okay. We'll get it on here.
Okay. I can plug it in if you want.
No, I mean, it's totally fine. If this is if the Zoom is capturing it, so I'm sure it'll be fine. It'll be all good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, so I knew the room actors just had so much more to offer, and I really wanted to give them a chance to prove that. And I thought this would give them that chance. And I just wanted to change that narrative of they suck and we all suck. And so that was what I did it for. I really felt like I had nothing to lose, but I also had everything to lose. So I felt like I had to prove that we were good, but I was already being dragged through the mud as being crap. So then again, there was nothing to lose.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm glad I did that, because I feel like most of my comments on the show are like, wow, these actors are actually decent. This is crazy. How,
Yeah. I mean, and it just goes to show, I mean, it's everything. Cause it's like, I mean, God, like, I look back, some early stuff that I was cast in, and I didn't know what I was doing, like my first things, you know what I mean? And also none of the crew, none of the director, like, nobody knew what was good. And so the whole project looks like crap. And of course it seems like I am the worst actor of all time. I mean, it's so funny how that works. And then when you even just think about like how much control like an editor has, and post, like, which takes they choose and all this stuff, like a good editor can make an actor look amazing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
So like they can make a bad actor look good. You know what I mean? So it really also goes to say, like, the, person, the Tommy and whoever edited the room, like, I mean, when you don't know the tone of the movie you're making, when you don't know how to pull that out of people, when you don't know how to establish that on set, that's what's going to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. There were all kinds of, every possible mistake that could be made was made, and more. Like, things you could never think of were mistakes that were made on the room.
Yeah.
That's what's so beautiful about it.
I mean, it's the disaster artist, isn't that? And in a way, like you did your version of the disaster artist. You took the disaster and you turned it into something really great. And so I love that. I think it's so inspirational. So congratulations again.
Thank you.
Yeah. And you shot the final 2 episodes in COVID.
Yes. So as you know, we had 4 episodes already, 4 that came out like in 2018, and then 4 that came out 2019 that you were in one of those. And then the last 2 we shot 2020 November during COVID. And it was crazy. Like it was actually just really hard to be funny in that environment, which is what I found as I'm looking at the footage. Because there was just a lot of tension on set with like people with this, my COVID compliance officer, who I loved, actually, she was amazing, but she had this huge pole with like tennis balls on the end, and she was like holding it around, you have to stay away from each other, and then just the masks, and
taking me back to 2nd grade, like you guys have to be a yard foot apart. Like me and my friend talked too much, and so she was like 3 feet, and she put a yardstick.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the hardest part, is trying to be funny in that environment. And
yeah, just heavy.
And I'm like, some of this stuff just isn't as funny as I know it would have been had we shot it under different conditions.
Sure.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stress. But creative editing will make it look good.
Yeah, of course. And it's great. So you know that you've got it, the final 2 episodes. That's really rad. That's really really rad.
I wrote these way back, like 2014, 2013. And so it's great to finally have them made. The last episode has all the room actors. So everybody who was in the whole series.
Oh, cool. Yay.
Back, including Scott Holmes, who was not in the other episodes. He plays my boyfriend in the room. So he flew in from DC and he's in it. And then we've got everybody else, except it's still not Greg or Tommy. That's not a shock.
Yeah. But so do you have launch plans that you want to, or like do you know when those episodes are going to air, or is it still too early?
We're still putting them together. Yeah. So hopefully in the next couple months.
Cool.
Yeah. But I do have a YouTube channel you can follow if you want.
Yeah, sure.
It's Robyn Paris. Sorry. It's Robyn Paris 16. Yeah.
Robyn. Yeah, I subscribe, but I want to make sure listeners can. That's amazing. And so right now, you ended up getting your MFA from UCLA as well, which is really rad, in screenwriting. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Very cool. And just recently you were named one of the future directors of studio features, one of the fellows from the Blackmagic collective, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. That's so rad. So do you want to how did that come about? Was it just a general submission process, or because I know you have another short film on the circuit right now, Fruitless, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, tell me about that process.
Yeah, so it was a submission process with some essays, and you send in 2 of your favorite projects or your best projects. So I sent in the first episode of The Room Actors and Fruitless, which is my other new short, and that is a dark comedy. I wrote, directed, and I star in it. So I wore a lot of hats on that one, but it's more of a Alexander Payne kind of tone. It's more grounded, more real. I just wanted to try a different tone from The Room Actors. And it definitely has some drama in it, and it's on the festival circuit. It's been going to some good festivals. It was a different experience for me, not being just wacky. And I feel like my sweet spot is somewhere in between The Room Actors and Fruitless, maybe a little wackier than Fruitless, but like a little more toned down than the Room Actors. Because the thing about The Room Actors is no matter what went wrong on the set, we're like, it's okay. We'll act like we did it on purpose, just like The Room. Like,
yeah, anything goes in something like with the mockumentary. It's like anything goes. The more insane, the better.
Exactly. We could make literally anything work there. So. So I submitted those 2, and then we had an Zoom interview for it, and then they picked 9 women, and the women are really diverse in terms of the types of projects they do. We've got people who do horror, sci-fi, heavy drama, fairy tales, and then a few who do comedy as well. And it's been great. We meet almost every other week with what we call a champion. So it's like somebody in the industry, maybe a director, producer, showrunner. And we get to grill them, essentially, ask them questions about the industry. But it's also a great way to network with people. And then we got that great press and Variety. And so I'm really excited about it because it's helped me. I mean, the room, I guess that's what I do want to say about the room actors and the whole journey of like just being a writer to a director. It really helped my career.
Yeah.
Just basically getting up off my ass. I mean, you've made movies too. I know you've written and directed movies, but just the process of making myself do it and facing my fears of putting myself out there and being in the limelight and being a director and being in charge and making it happen and taking it all on my shoulders. Like, if this sucks, it's all me.
Yeah.
But if it's good, it's me too, I'll take some of the credit too. So that has changed everything for me. That changed my career. I mean, it has opened so many doors. I think it's just, you have to take risks.
Yeah.
You have to face your fears. And doing the room actors opened just countless doors. Like I thought that once I did the room actors, I was hoping I would get like agent calls and people things. None of that happened. I didn't get like a manager that was knocking down my door or anything, but I have gotten attachments as a director to some really great features.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and people have thought of me for other projects. They're calling me and it's gotten to this. It's great because now I'm actually needing to turn down projects, which definitely was the dream way back. Yeah. So I mean, I would just say to your listeners, like, if you just make something, now it's so easy to just pick up a phone or whatever.
It is, yeah.
Make your own work and put yourself out there and face your fears.
Yeah, because that's really like, it's like the same thing for me. I mean, I guess I've always been pretty much like, I've always been like, I'll just go headstrong into something, like, dive in the deep end. And, I definitely wish I sometimes took like smaller steps, but I'm at that point now too, where like, you do just have to get it off the ground. You do just have to at least try, because you can only, like, you're only going to get better. You know what I mean? You get better with every single project. Like, even you talking about how you went from the wackiness of the room actors to Fruitless and the different, like the change in tone and how it taught you, like you learned where you best fit. And it's imperative. I think we learn best on set. So that's really fucking cool. What, in regards to Fruitless, so do you have, are you currently are you working on any other shorts, any other like goals for features? What's next?
Yeah, I have a couple shorts that I'm working on that I'm going to make this year. So I put it on my list. I'm going to make them. But that, doing the Kickstarter I met some investors, essentially. I met people who liked my work and wanted to support me, and I'm still in touch with some of them. And so one of them is actually helping me to make my next short.
Amazing.
That's the other thing about crowdfunding, is you never know who's going to come and jump on your team and say, I support you. And it's a stranger, somebody I've never met in Delaware.
Yeah, it's strange with Stuck here. The director of Stuck had made a web series in the past, and this woman had like donated and became like a fan of her. And so when we launched this, I mean, she gave us like a lot of money. We named a character after her. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we ended up changing the name of a character because she swooped in and gave us a lot of money that we like. I mean, there are those people out there. And like you said, they are just going to, if they like what they do or like what you do, then, they're going to keep supporting you. And that's the best thing. And I think reaching out to audiences and recognizing that like the internet is a powerful tool. It's out there. And if you put yourself out there and you're genuine and honest and have a desire to create, there's going to be somebody who wants you to create,
Yeah, absolutely. You don't know where your fairy godmothers or godfathers are, and you just get it yourself out there and say what you want and say what you need, and they'll come out the woodwork. So we're going to make two. This one's called Public Nuisance, and it's about misbehaving women. And 19th century America.
Love it.
They're doing like learning to read and birthing girls instead of boys.
That's so amazing. That should be a series. I hope after you make the short, somebody realizes that that is so brilliant. It should be a series. That's great.
I would love to make it a series. I would love to. And then the other one is called, it's called Garage Sale. A friend of mine wrote this one, and it's about a boy dealing with the ornery ghost of his grandfather living in his house. So it's a little darker, but it's still really funny.
Cool.
But then I have 2 features that I just finished with 2 new writing partners. So I'm also trying to shop those around. And
so how do you, in terms of is this the first, so these are new writing partners and different ones for each one?
Yeah, I've written alone in the past, but it was actually, we started working on these scripts like a year and a half ago before the pandemic. 2 different friends said, hey, do you want to write something together? And I immediately said yes, because for me, like, my buzzword is collaboration.
Absolutely.
Right now. And for like years now since I made the Room Actors, because I just feel like we're better together, coming together, helping each other. So I always, if it's somebody whose work I admire, or I'll always say yes. I'll just be like, yeah, let's do it. How can I help?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I said yes to both, and we developed 2 different, female-driven comedies. One is like a female hot tub time machine.
Oh, love it.
Well, yeah, so it's called White Zin. It's for women in their 40s, drink
Perfect.
a bottle of White Zinfandel, and travel back to 1993, their senior year of high school. And the other one is called Dude from Scratch, and it's like a reverse Weird Science. So 2 brilliant female scientists create the perfect man.
Brilliant. Oh, that's so perfect. I mean, I'm so surprised that that studios haven't thought of the Weird Science one. Like, it seems like, you know what I mean, that they would have done that flip, because they keep doing that. But good. Yay.
So we need to get it out there quick.
Yeah, totally. Good. I hope that sounds promising. Like, I feel like you could easily get people behind those concepts. That's really rad. You mentioned that. So I wanted to ask, because you mentioned the thing about the fairy god person, the investor that you met via your first, time around the block on Kickstarter. Have you found that it's easier to source the audience after getting your first project out? Like, have more willing contributors come out of the woodwork, or okay.
Yeah, I would say I did get a guy who gave me $10,000 for the first Kickstarter, which was crazy. But since then, I've had more people give me smaller amounts.
Sure.
Since I've made the first 3, like, because they saw them and they liked them. And they had a guy over the pandemic reach out to me on Twitter, and I'm not even on Twitter much. I don't always follow people who follow me. I'm just not even on there much. Mm-hmm. But I happened to follow him, and he sent me a message, and he said he liked my work, and could he get my email, and I gave it to him, and he's funding. So he's basically the fairy godfather funding.
Yeah, that's so amazing.
And I just met him during the pandemic over Twitter.
That's so great. I mean, those are my favorite. And Twitter, that same thing. Like, I feel like everybody listening, like, writers, and I feel like film Twitter is like a great resource. You know what I mean? The lady that I mentioned for Stuck, she gave us several $1,000s as well. And she was from the UK. None of us have ever met her in person, and she just saw and gave some. And then when it was starting to, like, it was that worrisome moment of like, oh, are they gonna, she threw in even more, like, it just totally crazy, and it's like, but the arts are so incredibly important. When we don't have the ability to see ourselves, or to, relate to one another, or to feel like, I mean, it just makes people feel less alone. Like, that's what art does. And when we need that. Artists are incredibly important. And so it's so great that there are people out there that genuinely care enough to support independent artists, because I'm sure, I mean, I don't know what your experience has been in terms of trying to navigate Hollywood, as a woman, even though you went to UCLA, like, did you feel like you had to do it yourself? You know what I mean? Did you feel like that? Like, it was like, I have to get started myself? Or did you feel like there was another route? Like, what was that for you?
You mean after going to UCLA in terms of making something?
Yeah. Was it like, were you like, okay, I have my degree, I'm going to try to just go the route of writing scripts and submitting and trying to get representation, like going the, by the book route? Or did you feel like, okay, I have to do this myself? Like, what was that like?
I tried to do it by the book for a while, which I think a lot of people do, especially in my generation. Um, and I did have a manager. I won a big award while I was at UCLA called the Sam Goldwyn Screenwriting Award, and that
Amazing.
ultimately led me to my. Oh, thank you. But they didn't sign me based on that script because it was too dramatic and it was not commercial, But they're like, if you have something commercial, send it over. So I sent a comedy, and then they signed me with that. But then I had, I went the meetings all over town, lots of close calls, and then nothing happened. And just a lot of like I got the, kind of got the runaround, like developing ideas, and then nothing would happen. And I'd never get paid for any of it.
Yeah.
And that went on for a while. And I was like, this is ridiculous. And so then I was just tired of that. I mean, I hit a point where I hit an age where it's like, I'm not getting any younger, and I can't sit and wait for people to miraculously love my writing anymore. It's just not going to happen. I mean, I won some award. I'm still sitting here with not another dime in my pocket. And so I just, I felt like I had to do it. And I feel like I wish I'd known that earlier, or even had the balls to do it earlier. I feel like in my 20s and early 30s, I didn't have the self-confidence maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And I also felt like Hollywood was very intimidating.
It is. I mean, it is. And I think that's the thing too. A, it's intimidating. B, there's so many Hollywood politics that go on. And it breaks your spirit. And like, it's like, because you're putting in the effort and making a lot of great work that people are liking, that's getting awards and all this stuff. But, to get to that next level, how difficult it is from there, because I had a similar thing. I sold my writing partner, Dave, and I had sold a screenplay in 2015, and it never got made. So you have that sale and you're like, oh my gosh, this is it. It's going to change my life. Yeah. And I got a check, but I didn't, no, it wasn't going to get made. So nobody was ever going to see written by Heather Turman on the screen, And so that was when we decided, or I went to him and I said, let's write a one location that we can produce, because at that point it was like seeing that we spent 3 years writing and trying to get it read. And then we had like a big executive come in, and she loved it. And she gave us notes, and we took them, and she was blown away that we took the notes like as quickly and as thoroughly as we did. And then she still went to, because a friend initially had optioned it for free. And the woman executive who came in, sort of pulled him aside and was like, this is great, but like, they're unknown writers. Like, I know the writer of Legally Blonde. Like, I kind of want to, make this official, get it from them, and then pass it off to her, have her jury write, give her the credit. Then we can package it and sell it. Do you know what I mean? Like, so she was trying to buy us out, and it just felt so dirty and so frustrating. And there's all kinds of things like that in this industry, And so no matter how good your work is, there's always going to be someone that's going to come in and be like, yeah, but, and so you just have to do it yourself.
You have to raise your own profile, because once your profile is raised, they can't do that to you anymore. Right?
Exactly.
Because you have this press, you have this visibility, and you are somebody. I'm doing air quotes, by the way, because that's stupid. It's ridiculous. And you should have gotten the credit and sold that script back then. But because your profile wasn't high enough. So yeah, that's the other argument for just making your own stuff. Right?
Yeah, at least like showing like, this is, this is my lens, this is my, voice or whatever. Yeah, I think I can't say that enough. And that was my, that's my goal for this podcast, is like, because I feel like I listen to all kinds of indie film podcasts, many, and so many of them are male dominated. And so many of the filmmakers that go on the shows are all men. And I'm like, I know there are women who are also getting their projects off the ground and putting in the work and turning out amazing quality shit. Like, we need to amplify those voices and get more people to see their work. So, because I know that I watch all the, when I do listen to indie film podcasts, I end up watching like all the films that I hear these people talk about, just because I am in this world, and I feel like it's important to know what's going on in specifically indie film, not just mainstream Hollywood.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. And I think I would love to hear your story sometime too about making Stuck and what it did for you. Like, just because, I mean, that's what everybody tells me, like, oh, you have to make a feature. You can't attach to this feature until you've made another feature, and you hear that all the time. So just that process of making your first low budget feature is a huge feat.
Yes, I mean, it was definitely a huge undertaking for sure. But I will say that I've seen a lot of success come from web series still. Like in this day and age, like I think people underestimate the impact of it, because so many big festivals, like another guest, I'm actually interviewing her tomorrow. I worked as a UPM on a web series that she and her husband had, written and produced and started, and it was excellent. And it got into Tribeca, and from there, I mean, they're repped and they're directing all kinds of great stuff based off of those web series. And so it's that thing of, yes, people say you need to do a feature for sure. And I think there's a lot of merit to that in a lot of ways, but it kind of feels like when you are navigating the indie space, it's sort of, that's the quote by the book way that we're talking about with screenplays. It's like, if you want to direct, people are like, well, have you done a feature?
Mm-hmm.
But I think there is still power in web series and shorts for sure. But
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I am contradicting myself because, like I said, I am attached to a few features based on the room actors.
Right. But people are still going to ask you in the industry, where's your first feature? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So we have a couple minutes left. Since I love the path we're on, and I just think you're really great, and would love to hear more in terms of like what are your overall goals? And from here, if you get those features off the ground, what is your overall, like, what would be the moment for you? Like, comedy's for sure your space. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I feel like comedy is, I watch, Nomadland, and it's amazing, but I'm like, I'm not going to be able to, I'm not doing that. It's just, and everywhere I look, I see comedy. Like, I just find things to laugh at everywhere I turn. And when I try to do drama, it ends up being comedy. So yes, comedy in my space. And it's just a matter of the finding that right tone. But I don't know. I love heartfelt comedy. I love like old school 80s, 90s comedy.
Same.
With great stories, great characters that you really care about, and you're also laughing so hard you're crying.
Yes.
So that's, to me, my sweet spot. And I'm trying to bring those back with some of the scripts I'm writing and the ones that I attach to. I only want to do things with heart. I mean, I just feel like things are funnier when you care about the character and are truly invested.
Absolutely. I think we went down a bad path with comedy for a little while. I feel like we hit, I think 80s and 90s were for sure, and 90s in particular, I feel like just really gold, like we really hit a peak. And then when the 2000s started, like, no shade to Judd Apatow, but I feel like this bro-y type of humor sort of dominated, and it just was never necessarily funny to me in particular, at least in my opinion. And so I'm so glad that that's your goal, because that's what we need.
Absolutely. I feel like the female characters really took a hit, maybe. And then when there are female characters, it's all of them have to be female. It's like we can't somehow see a man and a woman together and allow the woman to be funny as well. I mean, and if you think of like Goldie Hawn, like her movies in the 80s, I mean, she was hilarious. And there were rom-coms that she was in where she was like the star, and that was great. And they were good movies. So I would love to see that type of dynamic between a man and a woman come back, where they can be funny together, or I don't know, an ensemble piece where men and women can be equally funny together, Yeah,
where the women aren't just props or sound pieces, right. And in particular, it's so funny, Goldie Hawn, during COVID, during the pandemic, I watched House Sitter. I'd never seen House Sitter. I loved it. I thought it was so great. Her and Steve Martin. And
how have I not seen it?
Oh my God, it's so great. I love it. It's like Goldie Hawn and Steve Martin, and basically he has a house he's not living in, and she learns about this, so she goes and breaks in and moves in, you know what I mean? And then when his family comes, you know, looking for him, she's like, oh, well, she lies and says that they're married, and like all this stuff. So it's really great.
That's classic Goldie Hawn.
Totally. I think like that's something too, is that, you know, the actors really shape a lot, like who's big in Hollywood really shapes the type of films that get made, you know, like obviously Melissa McCarthy is amazing, and I like all her films. I'm not gonna say that I don't like any of them. Some people were saying that they didn't like the recent one on Twitter, and I was like, I laughed, I liked it, you know, but
Space Force, I haven't seen it yet.
Okay. I laughed. I just like, you know, it opens with a younger Melissa McCarthy and younger Octavia Spencer, like children version. And the tweet that I'd seen said something along the lines of like, oh, 12 minutes in, and you know, Melissa McCarthy's character is, you know, terribly unlikable. And it was really just a really badass little girl in a playground. And it was a male who typed this. And so it's just that thing of like, whenever there's a strong female, men immediately assume that they say that unlikable thing. And my defense always, like, because I wrote a female football script. That was the last script that I wrote that I have. And it's like a revenge, you know, high school revenge. A female quarterback was on like her high school team, because my high school really did have a female quarterback. So I was like, this could happen. And then on the other team was like a big, you know, female linebacker who's like it was like an Amy Schumer opposite Ronda Rousey type comedy. And and she, a male reader was just like, oh my gosh, these females are so unlikable. And then women would read it and be like, I love that these are like strong women, you know? And it's like, that is a big problem. Like when men are seeing anything with a female and think that she has to be more demure, she has to be, you know, more meek, she can't be out there. Like my defense is always, I don't want to hear about a character being unlikable. Like there's no such thing as a character being unlikable. If you give them that little saving grace, right? Like not Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore beat people with hockey sticks. He beat people with golf clubs, but it was all, but he loved his Nana, you know what I mean? And we will forgive that. And so it's just like that thing. I'm just like, I don't want to hear it. And I especially don't want to hear it about women.
No, absolutely not. There's so many unlikable male characters that people love, like Fargo, the movie and the TV show. I mean, like that's what I say in my Fruitless spiel when I apply to festivals with Fruitless, because the character is quote unquote, I would think somewhat, she's kind of unlikable, like, but because I feel like women will not, it's not equal until we're allowed to play the full gamut of human experience, including people who are deeply flawed and wrong, and still allowed
room for growth.
Yeah, like, we don't have to be redemptive at the end. We don't have to, you know, my character in Fruitless wants to have a baby, but for all the wrong reasons. And you know, most of the movies you see like that, where a woman's striving to get pregnant, because she deeply wants to be maternal and have a baby and care for someone. That's not the reason my character wants a baby. Like, to join this clique of moms because she feels like an outsider.
Oh, that's great.
So she only wants a baby for that. And it's like, it has some emotional moments too, but mainly that's why. And I don't know. So I have this spiel about that women need to be allowed to be wrong and bad, and that needs to be okay. And we should be able to do that in movies. Which is why I loved Promising Young Woman. I mean, it was
excellent. Yeah.
And but also just that she was allowed to be kind of, I mean, she had a reason for doing what she was doing, but she was allowed to be dark.
Yes, absolutely.
But you know, I feel like readers for my White Zinfandel, my hot tub time machine for women, I sent it to a lot of men, and they're all like, oh great, but it's not for me. And then the women I send it to, who are in my age bracket, all seem to love it. And I'm just like, I just got to get it to the right audience, the right
absolutely
people.
Absolutely. And I think like that's the thing too, is and especially for people listening, like so many people are going to say no. So many people are going to say no to any project, and it just takes the one. You know, you always hear those stories about, oh, so and so passed on Shawshank Redemption, and then, you know, somebody didn't, and look what happened, you know. And so it is about finding the right person, and White Zin probably needs a female executive to be like, yes, you know what I mean?
Right. Somebody in the 40s. So if you're out there.
Yeah, if you're
no, I mean, absolutely. And I like to write wrong women. Like the first, somebody told me that the first scene of my Dude from Scratch is the same as the first episode of Space Force. They were like, it's the same thing. I haven't seen Space Force, but somebody told me that they're young and they're on the playground and they beat up a boy bully. That's how our movie starts.
Love it.
So we're gonna have to change that because now it's been done. But yeah, so they start out, one of our characters is just this badass. She beats men, she sleeps with men left and right. And the other one's like sweet. But I think the other one, the badass one, is actually a better, like more fun character.
Yeah. Oh, always, always. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, my life, you know, my idol is Madonna. I just feel like, and the reason is because she does what the men do, and like since day one, you know, and just doesn't. And if you try to tell her otherwise, she's like, shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? And so I am constantly looking for that. And I love when I see that. You know, that's why like when Ghostbusters came out, it was such a big deal because it was women not in skimpy outfits. They were in the Ghostbusters uniforms, knowing science and being smart and defeating something because of that, you know?
Right.
And so that I love that you are out there writing stuff that will help change all of this narrative. And, you know, and I hope you get to direct them. I hope it all happens.
Thank you. Thank you. We need more women to do that, and never listen to somebody who tells you to stay in your lane. I had somebody tell me, stay in my lane. Like, I don't have a lane. I don't know what you're talking about. I've never had a lane.
And that's
I don't
so
see
like,
myself as in a lane. And so we need to not have lanes.
yeah, I like that too. No lanes. Like, cause especially now with technology, like we're expected to wear multiple hats. The fact that actors with self tapes are having to, you know, cut and edit and, you know, turn in their audition tape. Like we all need to, you know, now people want everyone to write and produce and direct and do the gambit, you know? And I know you were talking about a different lane, but just in general, I like the idea of not making people stay in lanes. You know, we're human beings. We need to be able to like grow and evolve. And why do we have to stop learning, or why do we have to stop trying new things? Like,
yeah, absolutely. And as we age, especially, it's important to continue learning because that's how your brain stays fresh.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're forcing us to get Alzheimer's, people.
Right.
This was so lovely, Robyn. This was so lovely. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
Yeah, and I know you just started writing for a new project too. I don't know if you're allowed to say that. If are you?
I am. It's a kids show. It's a kids math show. I used to be a math tutor. That was like my struggling actor job. I tutored SAT prep and ISE prep. So now I'm marrying that with like comedy, and it's a kids math show. It's kind of like yeah, we'll see. I just literally started it, so I probably shouldn't say much more.
Okay, so because I was going to ask like, oh, when does it come? But okay, yeah, we'll leave it at that. And then I'm sure people who keep up with you will eventually see something online where you're like, watch the new show I wrote.
Exactly. It probably won't come out till the end of the year, but it's kind of like a Bill Nye the Science Guy, but for math.
Love it. Love it. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you so much. And you mentioned your YouTube. Is there anything else that you wanna plug or promote or draw people to?
Sure. If you want to check out my website, it's robynparis.com. And my Instagram and Twitter are both robynoparis.com. I check Instagram more. And yeah, so if fruitlessthemovie.com if you want to see the trailer for that, theroommockumentary.com if you want to watch the Room mockumentary, but it's also on my YouTube channel.
Perfect. Beautiful. And it's great. I'm just going to say that you guys, Robyn knows comedy and you will not be disappointed. So
thank you so much. Well, Heather is we're in episode 6 together.
6.
So go and watch that episode if you want to see Heather and I battle it out.
Oh, it was such a blast.
Competition. It was fun.
It was so fun. It was so fun. Thank you so very much for making the time. I know you're busy, and I'll let you know when this drops. And and let's keep in touch.